Gary Griffith is with us via Zoom. Fellas, again, a little playback. So I know I'll have to press something. Beautiful. Gary, morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
Nice, man. You're looking serious this morning, boy. Like you lose sleep over West Indies, too. No?
I almost thought we turned the corner.
Boy, we're going to. So let's get down to it in the time that we have. The polygraph testing bill was passed, and everybody across social media and the country, rather, is saying that, you know, why stop at the police and why not politicians, heads of state? But before we get to the why not with that, this allegation, if I could put it that way, of a former commissioner of police walking out of a polygraph test. A lot of people message me, and this is Stefan, you had a Gary Griffith one, and Gary had to answer if you really walk out of that polygraph test. A lot of people, even yesterday I was in alignment, people asking me that. So I leave the floor to you to explain what took place as best that you can.
Yeah, sure. Good morning again. It's the same thing. When Keith Rowley and Fitzgerald Hines, I think their favorite singer is Lionel Richie. They live in Lightwood Village. It's always lie, lie, lie. And they could say that because they go in parliament. It goes right back to well, it's only in a banana republic, as I always say. Politicians can hire civilians, turn them into investigators, let the investigators write what they want in the report, and then run in parliament to lie. That's what he wanted to do with the firearms. It's the same thing he did with Emailgate. So you come and make that stupid statement. At no time did I ever walk out of any polygraph test. That was a lie. Say about I was hooked up and I pulled it off and all of that.
Yeah.
Now, to start with, had that even been true, how it is that politicians know that? Because a polygraph test is something that's supposed to be totally confidential. How would you as a politician know exactly what took place in a polygraph test? It shows that that whole system was totally compromised. And that was my concern. So, and when Fitzgerald Hines asked, how would I know what questions are to be asked in a polygraph test? The reason being, I served in the Defense Force for 17 years. I was a Minister of National Security. I was a Commissioner of Police. I was Head of Intelligence of the Defense Force. I was the Defense Force Intelligence Representative at the Joint Operational Command Center. I went to probably one of the best military academies in the world. So I know how a polygraph test is supposed to be run. Okay. I actually went to Florida, and I was polygraphed by one of the top experts in Florida that deals with law enforcement to show emphatically that at no time have I ever broken a law or committed any criminal act. I'm ready to give that to the media, something Keith Rowley cannot do. And that is why I knew that when I went to the polygraph test in 2021, the questions that were being asked prior to me being hooked up had nothing to do with polygraph testing. Imagine you're asking the person questions, tell us all the relationships that you may have had in your life, and tell us, do you know any member of your family that may have ever committed a crime? That has nothing to do with law enforcement. Law enforcement polygraph testing is, are you involved in criminal activity? Have you aided and abetted in a crime? Have you financially benefited in a crime? Have you been involved in knowing that a crime committed and you did not adhere to your responsibility to report it? Those are the questions that should be asked. Nothing like that. It was an interrogation to Mako and see if we could find something on you. So I knew that it was compromised by politicians telling the SSA person, this is what I wanted to ask Gary. And when you do these tests, it's supposed to be across the board. Everybody must be asked the same question. This was only done for me alone. And that is my point. That was my concern. Nevertheless, I still went and I still took the polygraph. I was fully polygraphed. And the reason to show that I did not fail is that I came first in the merit list. I would not have come first in the merit list, get 20% more than Earl Christopher had I not done the polygraph test or failed. Okay. And so that is the concern. And again, what should happen, and I'm hearing your point, politicians should do it. He keeps thumping his chest to say he's the chair of the National Security Council. Well, then lead by example. Be hooked up. I am prepared to be polygraphed at any time. Did I commit a crime? Am I aware of crime? Have I aided and abetted in criminal activity? Have I supported persons in crime? I could be polygraphed at any time. I challenge Keith Rowley and Fitzgerald Hines to also be polygraphed, and not just in that, to ask simple questions. Were you involved in trying to thwart a merit list to try to influence someone? Did you ever try to harass a commissioner of police to issue firearms for certain friends? Did you ever harass a commissioner of police to get a FUL dealership for somebody in Tobago so hundreds of more firearms could be sold? Were you ever involved in liaising with a police constable in the diplomatic center to find out information about firearms, and now she was promoted to a higher position? Have you ever given the commissioner of police $45 million to inject into the police account, direct him to hire these attorneys without a proper tender process, turn them into SRPs in the hopeful expectation that they could arrest political opponents? And the list goes on and on. Are you aware of Emailgate? Have you ever been involved and financially benefited from firearm sale or from acquiring state asset and material? Those are the questions I want Keith Rowley, Fitzgerald Hines, and myself to be hooked up and let us be polygraphed. You cannot lead by example and tell the police officers to be polygraphed, but you're afraid to do so yourself.
Yeah, because from my knowledge of a polygraph test, the questions are supposed to be posed in a way where it's a simple yes or no answer.
Correct.
It's not, Carl, can you name family members that you may think are in criminal activity? Carl, Edward, it doesn't work like that, right? It has to be put across. That's a yes or no answer. But we know that it is beatable.
And that is it. So it was a and to confirm it was compromise, how would these politicians know what happened in a polygraph test unless the SSA person that was doing the polygraph was reporting to them? That shows the SSA has been totally compromised. And then when I reported this to the director of the SSA, he himself was concerned. Notice he has been fired. He has not broken the law. He has not committed a crime. He did nothing wrong. But because they would, and another polygraph question they should ask is, did you harass a commissioner and a director of the SSA to appoint a police constable to be in charge of all the intercept equipment of the country? Because you're probably closely affiliated with him. So, and that is my point. The questions that were being asked had nothing to do with polygraph testing for law enforcement. It was an official expedition, and this was before I was even hooked up. And then, so it was an interrogation. And because of my experience, training, and qualification in law enforcement, that's when Hines asked, how would I know what are the questions to be asked? Because I am qualified in law enforcement. Your Prime Minister is qualified to massage rocks and stones as a geologist.
Okay. All right. I want to get on to something. I want to move over to something else that's very important as well. And you could answer this as a former Commissioner of Police and a former Minister of National Security. The Prime Minister recently said that he believes that we're spending too much money on national security to protect people. I don't know if he's talking about citizens or themselves, but to protect people from a minority of citizens that are committing illegal acts. Now, here's my question. I have said that I think we spend too much money on national security and not enough on community development and other programs. So if you're looking at it from that aspect, I could understand where you're coming from. However, what does a police commissioner or the TTPS budget look like, or even a national security budget look like as it relates to the expenditure in terms of recurrent and dealing with resources and getting resources to deal with crime? Because I know that at one point in time you did not get sufficient funding, but you jumped through some loops and some holes to make things work. So in terms of that cutback on spending, do you see it as a political leader yourself now, gearing up for a general election? Do you see, do you agree with that we're spending too much money on national security, and how would you approach that from an expenditure standpoint?
Yeah, sure. He probably spends more time saying he's the chair of the National Security Council and saying he's the Prime Minister because he wants to believe he's James Bond, but he's not. He's clueless. A comment like that coming from a Prime Minister who's the chair of the National Security Council shows that this man is totally ignorant of understanding the importance of national security and how do you package national security. So our budget is arguably about $5-6 billion TT per annum for national security.
Right.
This is on par with most countries in the world for their annual budget, which is about 6 to 13%. It varies from Japan to other countries, from 6 to 13%. So we are not in any way over or under. We are just above in the same threshold. Having said that, some other countries have serious external threats, so they need strong militaries and so forth to inject into their national security to make sure to protect them from external aggression, which we do not. So the problem lies is that Keith Rowley doesn't understand national security and he doesn't understand being a prime minister or leader. myself as a commissioner, for example, I will acquire several $100 million as the commissioner of police. And then they cut hundreds of millions to me as commissioner during a period when we needed as much police as possible during COVID. And what I had to do, which is what a prime minister should be doing, which is what I can do when we get in government, so to explain to the country, there is massive waste expenditure in national security, admitted. And there's a major corruption, and we are not utilizing our resources in an effective and efficient manner. Example, when I was commissioner of police, you took away hundreds of millions. I had to find avenues to keep the police going. So what I did was I looked at overtime. We have overtime corruption of over 200, 300 million per annum I picked up. We have a couple hundred police officers who were claiming that they were working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making 8 times more than their salary, and it was being signed by other officers. So people say, well, why didn't charge? You can't charge someone for that, but it's unethical and it is impossible. So with that, I was able to save hundreds of millions and then utilize those funds to put 100 vehicles on the road 24 hours a day. Anytime someone called, you could have a response in 3 minutes, get tasers, body cameras, pepper spray, look at the change the uniform, dashboard cameras on the vehicle, operational command center, mobile scanners for the ports. That is how it is. You minimize your waste and your corruption, and you utilize it now for the many things that the police need without having to increase the budget. That is how you deal with it. Keith Rowley doesn't understand what I just said because he does not know how to understand running a government, a ministry, and definitely national security. Additionally, we spend over $50 to $70 million per month to maintain a defense force of 5,000 soldiers, sailors, and airmen. And for the last 34 years, they have been in camp waiting for a war to take place since the coup. 34 years waiting for another attempted coup. So the taxpayers spend $50 to $70 million for 5,000 persons to stay in camp. And this is not in any fault of the defense force. Each and every one of them want to serve. They want to come out. They want to protect the country. But they are in camp waiting for another coup. 34 years. So we have spent billions, tens of billions of dollars over the last 34 years to have the defense force on standby, when it could utilize half of them, train them into to understand law enforcement and being able to have powers of arrest and training to be able to complement the police service to protect the country. Right. So those are the simple examples I can use. And for Keith Rowley to state that we are wasting money, it shows his ignorance. Because the most fundamental right of citizens is safety and security. Yeah. If it is you'll secure the country, if the country gets safer, it is going to inject funds into our economy to increase tourism, increase sport, youth development, and it will reduce the expenditure that citizens have to put out in their own security. So his ignorance of trying to say, well, that is a waste, that is waste. It shows how this man is clueless. And people actually went to Sport and Family Day and tried to support somebody like that, who obviously does not understand how to secure a country.
Yeah,
well, he couldn't secure his family day yesterday, so he could secure a country.
Yeah, we saw it had a stabbing take place there between 2 teenagers. But what was interesting is that he said that 1 week, we spending too much money on national security. And then the next week, and I really, really want to seal the deal with this because I think plenty of people don't understand it. The Minister of Finance and the Exim Bank have a deal where we've been granted access to 500 million US for border security. Now, I bring this up because I know you are very, very familiar with those damning vessels that were bought after the arbitration was won from the OPVs. It was like $1.2 or $1.3 billion. You all went out, you shopped for these vessels. The vessels are parked up in Staubles Bay. Imbert said that a portion of the money will go towards purchasing 2 vessels. And when I read it, I was like, why are we purchasing 2 more vessels? Why are we even borrowing or getting into a deal to go in 500 million US more in debt? When we have 12 or 14, it is a fleet of vessels sitting down in Staubles Bay. Now hear the old talk, eh? This is what the old rum shop talk does be. Well, the partnership bought that fleet of vessels, but we don't have the gas for it. I said, what? So you're trying to tell me that they went shopping for vessels that we don't carry the gas for? I said, how stupid is that? I mean, just sit down and think for 1 second about what you're saying. So what is the issue with these vessels? Why these vessels not in use?
Well, the PNM, I think, is a very good move by them, because their main character has always been to try to find some project to have a massive markup. When you look at the same Brian Lara Stadium that was never made for international cricket, we spent $1,200 million to build a stadium that the equal cost in other countries around the Caribbean was about $50 million. That was the biggest corruption scandal in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah. The second would have been the OPVs. So when the PNM, they cancel the OPVs because you're clueless. Those OPVs, I asked again, anytime they talk about the OPVs, I asked everybody in the country after watching Synergy at this morning at 8 o'clock, at 8:01, type BAE/corruption, BAE, capital letters. That was the company that we were acquiring the OPVs from. And you will find 17 countries suing BAE, inclusive of England, of United Kingdom, suing them for paying kickback to government officials. So no surprise that they wanted those OPVs. When I was security advisor, I got offers, from the government and the administration from Colombia, Israel, and Korea. We're offering the same type OPV at 1.2 billion TT less than what we were going to pay for it. So there was a corruption kickback of over 1,200 million. I don't know what it is PNM has with corruption and 1,200 million. That was for the Brian Lara Stadium that really supposed to cost 50 million. The OPVs, 1,200 million again, and the cost would have been half the price. Right. So that was the kickback. So when I went and I acquired the diamond vessels, we were able to get the diamond vessels for half the price of the OPVs. So I saved the country 1,200 million in kickback, because the OPV would have been 2.4 billion when it should really be 1.2 for 3 vessels. Okay. When I acquired these vessels, it stayed in Stobles for 9 years because of incompetence. This is not the first. PNM, when it comes to PNM and vessels, anybody wants to go down to Chagaramas, go to Hartscott, you'll see 6 vessels in the water floating there for the last 16 years. Patrick, the PNM went to Australia. I went to Australia and I met with Ostal. They said, sir, these PNM people came at our company and they said they want those vessels. Those vessels were made for lakes. So when the Coast Guard got those vessels, they lasted about 2 weeks. The vessels were hitting the jetties. They couldn't handle our waters. So we wasted hundreds of millions of dollars on vessels. It's right out there outside Anchorage. You'll see them there. For 15 years, we have not been able to use those vessels. You have to put it out now and put it as a reef. That is the corruption and the incompetence of the PNM with vessels. So you have the diamond vessels that cost 1,200 million less, and you refuse to use it because you know if you use it, you will not have an excuse to buy more vessels for more kickback and more corruption. And the diamond vessels has been used in 17 other countries. When it is you look at the vessels in Austral that has now been acquired, 2 countries, Trinidad and Tobago and Australia. Right. Why bring other vessels when the diamond vessels could do exactly what the OPVs could have done?
Yeah, because the other argument is that you will hear from people, they will say, but Brazil bought them. I think Brazil is using those.
So let me clarify.
Yeah, clarify that.
Let me clarify. Bob, in Brazil, there's something called your EEZ, your exclusive economic zone. Your exclusive economic zone runs from 12 miles off your shoreline to 200 miles. Brazil's EEZ is hundreds of thousands of miles. Our EEZ is next to nothing because our exclusive, that is how you use an OPV. So when they say, well, Brazil used it, because when you look at the size of Brazil and their exclusive economic zone, they have thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of miles of water to protect. We do not have an exclusive economic zone with that capacity. So the OPV we had was not to be able to patrol between Trinidad and Venezuela. You don't use a vessel of that magnitude to secure that. When you look at the Bad Boys movie and all of that, what do you see securing offshore Miami? Interceptors.
Cutters.
Yeah. You don't put an OPV. Oh, they shut down the OPV and that's why guns coming in. No, an OPV is not going to be parked between Trinidad and Venezuela. What you do to secure that is what I did. I had an operational plan to secure our borders from the shoreline to 2 miles out, interceptors from 2 miles to 12 miles. You have those type of damming vessels. And then if you want to secure your EEZ, you need larger vessels. And Patrick Manning was acquiring the OPV to secure the waters between Trinidad and the Caribbean. He wanted to be the godfather of the country. He wanted to put up a pipeline from Trinidad all the way up to Jamaica. And that is where the OPVs would have been patrolling. So the OPVs was never intended to secure our borders to protect us from illegal weapons entering between Venezuela and Trinidad. An OPV is not designed for low-lying waters of that. It is to go hundreds and thousands of miles out to secure your exclusive economic zone, which Brazil has that capacity. That is why you look at other islands in the Caribbean, we don't have OPVs because we don't have that magnitude of exclusive economic zone, because you have to look at cost-benefit analysis to ascertain whether you need to spend hundreds of millions to secure an EEZ.
Okay. You see, and in this discussion here, we only have a couple minutes left, and I really want to find out about the position between NT and UNC before we close. But I hope the viewers, right, there is one thing to listen to talk on our platform, and sometimes you're seeing these little clips floating around with Parliament where politicians will just say things on the surface. I am glad this morning that you explained it from that standpoint, because I don't think that people, the average citizen doesn't understand. Because a politician will come and say, they remove the OPVs and they leave the borders open. And that's it. That's what people will go on. You just broke it down there, I think, very scientifically, as it should be broken down, because the average citizen doesn't understand how many things you have to look at when assessing how you're going to spend taxpayers' money. And in terms of coming up with the best solution to solve a problem that may exist in a country. So two things that jumped out there that people could go and they could research is the BAE / corruption?
Corruption.
And exclusive economic zones. And you could go and you could check it out and you could read the difference between Brazil's exclusive economic zone and Trinidad and Tobago's exclusive economic zone, and educate yourself, because more times than not, politicians aren't going to educate you. And I really, in terms of what you just said there and how you broke it down, the type of vessel, the exclusive economic zones, everything that you have to look at in your assessment, I think, I don't think it's going to be explained better than that to the average citizen anywhere on our platform when the politicking starts.
If I can interject on that, the sad thing about this country, which again happens around the world, Donald Trump said it perfectly. He said he could go into Times Square and shoot someone, and he would still have 50, 70 million people, Republican supporters, blindly supporting him. You think after what I said, it is going to put a dent on the 150,000 PNM till are dead? They don't care, because their political leader could do the same thing, shoot someone in cold blood downtown. They're still going to vote for him blindly, and probably on the other side as well. So you're always going to have 150,000, regardless of what I said. They will never, because they do not want to educate themselves, their political leaders will be afraid to debate with me on any matter. I'm not even talking about national security. They are cowards. So what they do is they go on a platform and they bark and they spit and they rant and rave. And then when they see you, they cannot. Fitzgerald saw me on the aircraft and I had to keep his eyes open like that, started tremble. They are cowards. When they see you in person, they run, they hide. When I saw Keith Rowley playing golf, and I said, look at what you're doing. His lips started to shake up and down. He's looking up and down on the special branch, laughing at him. They are cowards. So they go in parliament, they go on a political platform and big up themselves, make all kind of comments. Gary Griffith, leave Jillian John alone. That is how they are. But then after they'll lock you off from the phone because they can't communicate with you. They can't debate with you. And that is the unfortunate thing our country has. We have political leaders who are afraid to debate. They're afraid to have that they do not have the intellectual capacity to debate. So what they hope is that they could deal with their 150,000 PNM or UNC till they're dead, just tell them to vote blindly, and they will go and take a family day, pull tug of war, and say, I love the PNM.
All right. Just finally here, they tell me I have about 2.5 minutes. NTA, UNC, coalition prospects. What is the NTA's position? Because a few people feel that you were being a little aggressive in terms of the release that you put out. What is the NTA's position in terms of the general election that's coming up next year and any coalition with any political party, whether it be the UNC or otherwise?
Well, I wish to give the country the assurance that what we saw in the Congress of the People, and this is not to attack the leadership of the COP at the time, we are not going to be bullied, we are not going to be used, we are not going to be disrespected. The fact of the matter is that I think Julian John and Kamala Persad-Bissessar are the only two people on the planet that believe that the UNC could win alone. Kamala Persad-Bissessar's love for Julian John that continues to say that the UNC could win alone, they got the reality check of their life. Because in local government election, when the NTA supporters were asked to vote for the UNC supporters in their 110 seats, that included the 2 by-election seats. And because of that, there were a lot of threshold PNM disenchanted voters, because I don't think there's one person in the country that is satisfied with this government, but they will not vote for the UNC. And that is why many of those came across, and those are the NTA supporters, whether you call them previous ONR, COP, NAR, NTA, 10 years it might be a different set of letters. No. They voted for the UNC candidates. And that is why you got a tie. As soon as you became arrogant and figure, I don't need you, let us go alone, you took a tie with less than 2,800 votes to lose by 600 votes. And guess who was the person running the campaign? Julian John, you said to leave alone. That is the reality check the UNC got. And this is not to attack anyone in the UNC, because I have the world of respect for each and every member of the UNC. The UNC is a very great party. The same thing as the PNM. I have no issues with the political parties and the supporters. It is the leadership that is affecting this country. And if it is you are so naive that, again, what Kamala Persad-Bissessar, what she does is, and the same thing happened in 2010 before, who could have carried without that third force? Bring them in, hug them up, and then after kick them aside. And that is what caused the demise of the COP in 2015 and the demise of the UNC in 2015. You came back and did the same thing in local government. You realized you were going down, you embraced the third party, you put some polish by Gary Griffith and the NTB next to you, and you defeat the PNM by 68,000 votes. And then you realize you get on such a high, as per norm, you figure we don't need anybody. And then, bam, you get the reality check for the by-election. That says a lot. And again, but we are not here to beg to work with anyone. I am the representative and the servant of that third constituency. That bridge constituency has always decided the election. If it is that they decide to go alone, then on most occasions, the votes will be split is what they call, and you will see the results equivalent to 1981, 1991, 2001, and 2007. If they work with other political parties, they will defeat the PNM handsomely as in 1986 and 2010. So we are intent to monitor and analyze. I give the assurance to that 150,000 people who they call the knife and fork, the persons who have that intellectual capacity, the independent voters, the floating voters. We will make the decision on what is best for the country, not what is best for the PNM or the UNC. We don't work for them. We are not here to represent them, and we are not going to be used, and we will not be disrespected.
Okay. Well, Gary, I want to thank you for joining us this morning and giving us a little information on those, topics. And well, best of luck to England in the Euros.
Oh yeah, it's coming home.
Oh God, Southgate, all you under some pressure, man. Come on, Southgate. Oh, all that fire Southgate. All that fire Southgate. You know that.
Manchester United, the national football team, West Indies. I have to get right at least with England.
And enjoy the rest of the day.
Take care.
Yeah, man. So that's